We can't like every card, so here's some cards that we hate.
I'm BZ. Sometimes I just like hating stuff.
I'm Mia. Cards make me angry. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Card Kingdom, the best place online to buy cards, singles, sealed product. You've got it all.
I think, as a person who sits on the right, I very much love going to their site to get free shipping on orders $50 or more. And when I use my own link, it lets Card Kingdom know that I'm supporting myself. And that would make a lot more sense if you were in my position there.
Our pictures are on the page. Go check it out. Tell them we sent you. We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you use the code
Nerds. How did I still get stuck with that?
check out. You can save 5% of your real money tax dollars on your entire order.
And Moxville.com. I'm not going to say you're a liar unless you try to guess the time code of where the Moxville ad's going to be, and then you're a liar because you can't possibly get it right because we will bamboozle you.
Also, we have a Patreon. Go check it out if you want deck audits, if you want to see exclusive content, gameplay, or just our podcast where we talk about anything that comes to our mind.
Yeah, our last 3 episodes are with band members, so check them out if you're a big fan of the metal scene. There's a lot of metal Magic players that we've gotten to play with. So, first, we're going to talk about some cards we hate. Sometimes cards just get on your nerves. You don't like them. We don't have to like every card. And we're not saying that you're wrong for playing any of these cards by any means. These are just cards that we kind of hate for various reasons. Most of them are not even card quality reasons. They're just goofy reasons. We're just going to rant at you. Hope you enjoy it for, however long this video is. But yeah, these are just some cards that we hate. Get under our skin.
We are the Nitpicking Nerds, so it is our job to nitpick these. What is your first card?
Yeah, we're going to alternate. My first one, I feel like it had to be Grave Titan. It just has to be. This card, it just embodies everything that I dislike. It just sort of started as a meme years ago, and I haven't gotten any lighter on it. It's just like it's a 6-mana 6/6 Death Touch, ETB or attacks. You get 2/2 black zombie creature tokens, and it seems pretty okay. But it turns out this card is just kind of bad to me in like everywhere. And what started it as a meme was that everyone kept trying to tell me that they had the one exception where Grave Titan was playable. And every time I looked at the deck or I heard what they had to say, I was like, no, I just still think it's bad. So I think Grave Titan is like a card that I would just never play. And it's just devolved to the point where everyone's like, well, what about this? And I'm like, no, I still don't think it would be good if you reanimated it with the Scarab God. No, I still don't think it would be good if you cared about zombie tokens. No, I still don't think it would be good in a zombie Kindred deck. I don't see any home for this. The only home that I've had for Grave Titan is me making fun of it.
Or in a 6/6 only Death Touch type creature deck.
That could be good. You got Gitrog Monster. You've got Wormcoil Engine. Yeah. 6/6 Death Touch deck.
There's not a lot to fill out that space, so if you do need one, that could be your place for it. However, Grave Titan just isn't good, I think, because bare minimum first, it's a giant. That's awful.
Not even a zombie. Yeah,
that's not even a zombie.
I like how we said, like, you're not wrong for playing these, but like this first one is bad. Obviously, this is our opinion of Grave Titan. It's not the gospel.
I am a little bit happier though that it is not $10 anymore. I couldn't justify being like, oh, you spent $10 on this card. Now it's like $1 or $2, which makes it a little bit better in my book if you're trying to play like top end budget. I still don't think it's good, but I think it's a little bit more acceptable if you have a budget deck and you need to try and like fill out the middle of it.
Totally. That being said, if you come at me and you say, BZ, how about my budget zombies deck? Do you think Grave Titan should go in? I would definitely say no.
No, it's not a zombie.
Yeah, Mia, what is your next card that you hate?
My next card that I hate is Heroic Intervention. It is a 2-mana green instant that says permanents you control get hexproof and indestructible. I don't like this card because I feel like whenever people play it, they think that their board is just completely untouchable now, and they completely forget about the fact that there are 10 million ways to get around this. Choose gets around hexproof. There's, Toxic Deluge that'll get around indestructible. There's Farewell that will get around indestructible. Things that you have to do don't help your permanents. I just feel like people put this as the go-to green protection spell. Not that there are many to choose from. However, I just hate when people think that it makes them untouchable when it is such a corner case for the removal that we play nowadays.
Cyclonic Rift, Tragic Arrogance, any number of sacrifice effects. Yeah, Heroic Intervention to me seems dead a lot of the time. I don't really like it that much. One of my pet peeves with Heroic Intervention is people who play it in blue decks, just because I don't think you need to do that.
You have counterspells.
Isn't a counterspell just like
better?
Almost entirely better, like 99% of the time? I think Heroic Intervention, if you're casting it in combat to like get indestructible blocks, it's more useful than a counterspell would be in that situation, but I don't think it ever really happens. So I think if you are playing a blue deck and you have Heroic Intervention, you can probably just cut it for like any 2-mana counterspell.
Yeah, and it might be better for the blocks. However, yeah, with Psych Rift or something, if you're swinging out in combat, it's a combat or a counterspell would be way better in that case. I mean, it's just like this and the Tameo safekeeping, that kind of like suite of cards really just annoys me because people think that it just is protection from everything for that card, and that is not the case.
So you want them to be like more scared when they cast Heroic Intervention?
I want them to know that it's not an end-all, be-all
You're
for
not
their
safe.
purse. It's not like a Teferi's protection. It's not like any of that. You are not safe because you have hexproof and indestructible for your permanents. So much gets around that.
Absolutely. My next card, Approach of the Second Sun. I only put this here because this is like sad glue that holds together decks that have no idea what they're doing and decks that have no idea how to win the game. And it's not the fault of Approach of the Second Sun. I think it's a fair card. I think it's a totally like reasonable card. But I think this poor card has had way too much weight put on its shoulders where people just build a deck that does nothing or has no win conditions and they just slap an Approach in there and they hope that everything is going to be all right now. And it isn't. And it isn't. And so then Approach comes around and it's like, I hate seeing it because the cards surrounding it usually are just so annoying and they don't work together.
Dude, I feel like Approach is what gives Azorius a bad name because every other type, it's like, okay, I can swing out with this, I can combo. And then Azorius, it's like, yeah, I'm going to lock you down and wait till Approach. That's your Coin decks. That's your Grand Arbiter decks. Those are your Pillow Fort decks with Ghostly Prison and Propaganda and Windborn and all that. And just overall, I feel like this gives Azorius a bad name.
Chris, our editor, throw up the Flex Seal meme with Approach the Second Sun. I think we used it before, but it's still applicable. It's just the number one card that, you know, these decks that kind of probably should have one or two more win conditions in them, they just always have it and they're forced to like rely on it.
Yeah, I feel like Approach is also the worst version of the Timmy player, just you wait until I untap, just you wait until I draw enough cards to win.
And then, you know, I cast a 7-mana sorcery and then another 7-mana sorcery and it's all coming together. I promise this deck can win. What is the, you know what? The number one slogan that follows Approach to the Second Sun is, sorry guys, I didn't know the deck would do this.
Built the deck to do same thing. Sorry guys, I
didn't know.
This is the first time.
I didn't know. All right, what's your next one? It's just a whole category of cards.
I don't like signets. I don't like signets if you have access to, if you need access to multiple colors. And there's like, this is like a twofold argument. One, I don't like green signets. I don't think green signets are good because you have ramp. You can ramp for lands. Don't use artifact-based ramp if you're going to be, you know, ramping in general with, if you can ramp with lands, because they are more susceptible to removal. One big Vandal Blast doesn't remove my lands. That is one part. The second part is I highly prefer talismans because I can use the mana immediately, and I like to play things on curve. I like having a lot of 1, 2, and 3 drops, and often having that mana is pretty important to my game plan. So when I play a Signet, I am not able to use that mana immediately, and that kind of just slows me down. I understand if you play it in like a 2-color deck or even some 3-color decks because you need the fixing. That definitely makes sense. But if you're in like 4 or 5 colors, which is where I like to hang out, signets are not the greatest.
I think totally agree on green signets and green talismans and whatever, because we just would never play those. That's kind of just an advice thing. I think it's still a little bit of a hot take to hate signets. I think what you're talking about is a problem when you tap out for a signet, but like how often do you tap out for a signet after turn 2? Like I will admit, I've noticed it more when I have a turn 2 signet and a 1-drop that I can't play. That's happened a couple times, but I feel like almost every other turn of the game, you just have more than 1 mana, so you can filter it into the signet.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to get that turn 2 signet every single time, and then I usually have something in my hand. The first 3 turns are some of the most important turns in Commander, so I feel like if I can't play the thing and get ahead with the cards that I'm playing, I feel a little bit hindered by that. And so I don't like signets because I so often have a 1-drop in my hand where it's like, ooh, if I had 1 more mana, I'd have interaction. If I had this, I'd have that, you know? There are so many times where it's like, I, you know, play a signet, it's like, oh, well, now I don't have mana for the Esper Sentinel or an offer you can't refuse. And it feels bad every single time.
Yeah, I was going to push back, but this video isn't about justice for these cards. It's about hating on cards just for fun. Just because we can, because a little jovial hate is fun every once in a while. My next one is Thieves Auction, and it's probably not for the reason you'd think. This is a sorcery that's like 100 mana. I think it's 105 mana, and it puts every card, every permanent in the middle, and then you have to draft them back one at a time, and you take the cards. I don't necessarily dislike this card because it's sort of nonsense and like extends the game. I don't think that's good about the card, but I don't really hate it because you don't see it too much. I hate this card because it's not even good. It's like putting all this stuff back together and then picking it out one by one is like not even that powerful of an ability, and you don't really get that much of an advantage being the person to cast it. So, and most of the time people are just going to take back their own stuff that they worked hard, that they have synergy with in the rest of their deck. So I just feel like it's a great way to just kind of do nothing. And I don't even, there's some cards like Warp World that take a while to resolve that do give you a pretty huge advantage. But this one to me just feels like a wash. And I just want it to go away.
I'm a sucker for a good mini game, so I don't mind Thieves Auction as much as you. However, I do admit that it is kind of tough. And I have lost a few cards to a Thieves Auction because they've just been swept up in an opponent's deck. I don't know. Sometimes when I have a Thieves Auction played against me, I might start targeting people's lands first. I'll like take their commander and then I'll take their lands and hope they don't die so my lands don't get like erased at that point.
Yeah. So your next card, I think you hate so much that I want to throw out another disclaimer that says we have no problem playing against these cards and we won't think any less of you. But Mia hates Joda the Unifier so much.
This dude is a Wooburg dude for 5/5, and he says legendary creatures get +X, where X is the number of legendary creatures. First of all, he doesn't even count him, like he does count himself, so he is a 6/6 by default, which is not written on the card anywhere. You just have to know that.
Bad templating.
Yeah. Second of all, if you wanted a Wooburg commander that is legendary based, that takes a little bit more like, ooh, what should I do right now? I think you should play Sisay. I think that's like pretty fun. Be like, ooh, what do I have in my deck? I have to find an answer. And then you have like Urtai and whatever, just flashing out that legendary dude counterspell. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, but he also cascades when you cast your first legend and it hits another legend, which will then buff your legends by more.
This is just awful. This is just like, how much value do you need? You can play every good legend. You just like, I just feel like I don't know which commander to choose. Why don't I just play all of them?
Yeah, if you have Joda and 3 other legends out, which is not unreasonable at all because he kind of spots you one for free as soon as you cast another one, then they all get +4/+4. That's an extra 16 power. So if you have anything that gives haste or whatever else, it's just kind of like out of control and you can't really let Joda stay in play. I'm happy to kill it. I'm happy to kill it. I hate it when it stays out because it'll kill me. But that's just a thing that has to happen. It's kind of not the best play pattern. Yeah, Joda's a little annoying. I think most people watching would agree.
Yeah, I feel like just Joda is one of the most annoying commanders ever. And it just feels like if you took like EDH Rex top 100 or shoved them in a deck and went, you know what? This has synergy, right?
And kind of, as long as they say legend, it doesn't really matter what they do.
I think it's so obnoxious. It just doesn't need to be 5 mana and then just cascade immediately and then also just give stats. Just pick a lane.
Good morning to all commanders except for Joda.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, my next one is Ink Shield. I feel like I'm being gaslit about Ink Shield. This is only based on, I guess what people tell me is it feels like everybody thinks that Ink Shield is like the greatest, most unstoppable card ever. But then every time I've seen it used or I've like played with it or borrowed a deck, it seems terrible, or I can see it coming from a mile away and I won't play into it. So I feel like there's like 2 different realities. There's like what everybody else is experiencing, which is Ink Shield makes 60 Inklings and they always die, versus what I experience where like you can't cast it or it's dead in your hand or you have to hold up a removal spell or something instead and you don't get the mana to cast it, or like someone knows about it and then you can only make like 6 Inklings. 5 mana is a lot to hold up, and I think I hate it because it feels like I'm missing out. And I get to experience some bad card while everybody else is experiencing some great card. It just seems terrible to me.
I know this is your card, but I want to add on to this because people say Ink Shield is a win con, and it isn't. Ink Shield is not a win con. A win con is something that you have to trigger on your own. You don't wait for opponents to trigger your win con. You trigger your own win con. That's your Crater Hoofs. That's your Approaches, unfortunately. That's your, whatever, really. That's your Cyber Drive Awakeners.
Joda.
I don't know.
How about Joda?
That's your Jodas. Joda is a win con because he buffs your stuff.
Ink Shield is a not lose con.
Yes, this is just I hope you swing at me and I hope I have 5 mana up. And that's a lot of mana to keep up. I think Ink Shield is a very fun card, don't get me wrong.
Definitely a fun card.
I think it is a great blowout card. Those are your deflecting palms, your Ink Shields, whatever.
It creates stories.
I think if you get it one time and you make 60 Inklings, you never forget about it. However, how about every single other time where you don't have 5 mana and someone knows and BZ swings at you with 8 damage and you can make 8 Inklings for 5 mana or not. It's just what happens when I tried to play it once and it felt bad.
Yeah, it has never worked for either of us. How about we go to a more popular card for you?
God, oh, Rhystic Study. Rhystic Study is a 3-mana enchantment. When opponents play spells, they can pay 1 or you draw a card. I don't like this card because it is too good. I don't like it because opponents playing irresponsibly can make another opponent win the game without you actively playing wrong or doing anything bad or even bad luck. The bad luck is that your opponents didn't pay, and I hate that. I can like deal with variance in my deck. It's like, ooh, maybe I didn't put in enough land. Maybe I need more protection. Sure, that's on me. Maybe I didn't play at the right time. I can't chalk anything up to my opponents didn't pay for another opponent's Rhystic Study, therefore I lost. That feels so bad because it has nothing to do with anything I could have stopped.
Yeah, I'm totally with you where you're saying that it's not like you hate Rhystic Study because it's very strong.
I mean, it is very strong, and
like,
it's a great card.
Whatever. We don't hate it because of that. You hate it because it can put the game in the opponent's hands where, like, if player A, who's neither of us, plays Rhystic Study, and then you are hanging around it and being responsible and putting yourself behind mana-wise, and then I just go, sorry guys, I need the mana, Nature's Lore, Signet, and then I pass the turn with 2 mana up, and I didn't pay. Like, that sort of stuff can just help you lose the game very easily to the Rhystic Study player, and it's just out of your hands.
It's just like bobble, Signet, pass.
There's always somebody at the table who just, sorry guys, I have to do this, and then the game ends.
Yeah, maybe like if you pay for it once and don't pay for it another time, it's like, okay, well, that doesn't feel the worst, but there's always that one person who's chained together like the brainstorm
just
in the
never
top,
pay.
and they don't pay, they have the mana, and it's like you're giving this opponent so many cards, it feels like two-headed giant at that point.
Yeah, it definitely can be a little frustrating. That's like, yeah, because that's not even really related to Rhystic Study. It's related to like the weird situations that Rhystic Study creates, and I totally agree with you. My next card, I feel like is barely a Magic card, and I've never seen it, and I hope to never see it. And it's a card that if it was banned in Commander, I think the format would probably be better for it. It's Time Sifter. You haven't probably heard of this because it's like, what is this? It's 5 mana artifact. Nobody gets to take their turn as normal anymore. The entire game is now going to revolve around this card. Every upkeep, everybody flips and exiles the top card of their deck. Whoever exiled the highest card, mana value-wise, takes an extra turn after this one. And that triggers on that person's extra turn. So instead of the turn order, it's just who flips the highest card off the top. This could potentially be a win con. Best case scenario with this card, you never get another turn again, and the game ends immediately. That doesn't sound very enjoyable. The worst case is everybody's just going to get screwed and is missing turns left and right at a completely uncontrollable rate, and the game just spirals into chaos. I don't see this card being fun or interesting or useful at all, and I really just hate it because it's garbage. It's like what a garbage card for like a trying to enjoy a 4-player game.
This is an obnoxious card. I'm so happy to have never seen it. If people are complaining about things like Time Stretch and Nexus of Fate, imagine if this came up. It's like, oh, I guess you just I can stack the top. I guess you just don't get another turn. That's cool.
Based on nothing, just based on how your deck happens to be aligned.
Yeah, sorry you play 2, 3, and 4 drops a lot. Sorry I'm playing 15 drops. My bad.
Right, and I guess you could do like Congregation at Dawn, or some way to stack your deck, right? And then you have a bunch of big giant creatures on top, so that you always take extra turns. That's still in the territory of like Time Stretch, copy Time Stretch, target myself, where the game's just over. It's like this is a very interesting Magic card because I think it is one of the very few Magic cards that cannot be interesting no matter what. And so I wanted to shout it out. Time Sifter, we hate you, buddy.
Yeah, if we see you, we don't like you.
Yeah, if we see you, we got beef.
Next card on my list is Windfall. It's 3 mana. Each player discards their hand, draws 7. This is in pre-cons a lot. This is not card draw. I want people to think about card draw real quick. And this talks about Secret Rendezvous and Make a Deal and all that stuff too. If your opponents are getting more cards than you're getting, it's not card draw. I'd like to just I think that should be like a good option for card draw, right? Because it's like, if they are up way more cards than you, it's usually not a positive to you. And that's different in like Nekuzar decks and, the wheel type decks because you're profiting off that. But if you're playing Windfall and you are like, I would like more cards, I'm going to play Windfall, I don't think that's the right answer. And I also don't think this should be in pre-cons.
Yeah, I don't think this is a graveyard card. I don't think this is a madness card. I don't think this is an anything card, unless you are in some super high power thing that we're not talking about because we don't really play CDH or talk about it on the channel. So really what we're left is, if you're playing wheels, Nekusar type stuff, totally. You need all the wheels you can get.
Or if you have some sort of like cheat way, like Narset, and no one else is.
We're going to remove that. every other scenario, I would just recommend cutting this card, and it's in every precon. And I feel like it just sort of tricks people into thinking that like this is just like a card draw spell, like a divination. You just put this in your deck. I think this card could be disastrous if you play this in most decks, where giving your opponents not necessarily 21 cards, but giving them access to a total of 21 cards after it resolves is just like so bad for you. If you're if you're down on cards, it's so much better for you to just draw up to 6 cards or 5 cards. Draw a couple, draw a few, spend more mana, draw more. Giving your opponents resources is disastrous for you. And I think most of the time, if you just cast Windfall in a random deck, you're like losing percentage points. You're not gaining percentage points.
And I feel like 21 is such a low estimate too, because there are so many decks that can utilize their graveyard, whether it be through flashback or graveyard commanders or just stuff in general, that you're giving people more options to cards than they had prior, and you're paying for it. It's not like oh, you have to pay this much to get this effect. It's like, no, I'm paying the 3 mana, and also you can get a fresh hand, and also maybe get the cards in your graveyard. I hate this because this is not real card draw. It's helping your opponents way more if you're not in the wheel type decks.
I think so. I'm going to summarize what Mia is thinking, I think, a little bit. And it's like, Windfall's a fine card. It has homes. But we're tilted that it's in every precon, and like it really, really should not have been in like the Wooburg Slivers deck. There's no.
Just because you want stuff in the in the graveyard does not mean you should play Windfall.
All right, my next one.
Yeah, how about your card draw that you hate? Card
draw. Please don't call this card draw. It is like, oh man, Thrill of Possibility is just another card that people constantly say like should go in decks, but I just hate it. I hate this card. It's not card draw, right? It's card filtering. You pay a card and cast this, which is 2 cards, to draw 2 cards. So you're even on cards, and that's like, it's a functional card. Is it card draw? No way. You will never convince me in any universe that this is card draw. I don't think that this has really any home. We have to talk about the homes people are actually playing it in, though. People are not playing this in any deck that has any color except red, because white has better card draw, blue, green, black obviously have millions of better card draw options. So the only place you could really play this is like mono red. It can put cards in the graveyard, like it can put an artifact in the graveyard for you to reanimate later. But I think this is such a bad way to spend mana. And I just kind of am annoyed to see it in the EDH rec. Like, it's one of the top red cards. It's like in the top 10. And it just bothers me. I can say I'm just thoroughly bothered by Thrill of Possibility.
I mean, I think there are things coming out that are better than Thrill of Possibility.
Anything.
There's like Demand Answers, for instance. Connecting the Dots is another one, depending on what you want in your mono red deck. And I think that because of that, I think if people are turned on to those a little bit more and they like, it starts playing and there's just like a memory of Thrill of Possibility because it's been out for so long, that it'll slowly start going down. But I feel like people it's their staple at this point, and I hate that.
You know what? I will also add in, I've played a lot of Limited in my day, and this card, in some form or another, has been legal in many, many, many Limited formats. I hate it just as much in Limited, too, because I think when you resolve this card, you get the feeling of just drawing 2 without the, like, you don't really feel it when you discard a card. You just get, whoa, 2 new cards. It's so exciting. I pitched a land that I didn't need. And it still just should never really be put in your deck, like in Limited decks either. So I feel like part of my hatred transfers over from Limited, and I'm just like, get out of here, you.
Yeah, but some of your love from Limited comes over with like Lingering Souls and Siege Rhino too. So BB just has like memories of Limited that are just impacting his Commander gameplays.
That's true. All right, speaking of Commander, this is my Commander that you just hate. You just hate it.
And I don't hate the deck. I think the deck is very good. I hate the fact that people don't respect it enough. It is Beldros Witherbloom. It's 6 mana for a 4/4 dragon with flying.
7 mana.
It's 7 mana. And it says that beginning of each upkeep, you make a pest that dies, and when it dies, you gain 1 life. But the most important part is if you pay 10 life, you can untap all of your lands, only once each turn. This thing is, people don't understand, or I don't know if you guys don't understand or you just don't care. Either way, though, BZ can take an extra turn just by paying 10 life, which is tough if he didn't build his deck around it, but he built his deck to gain life, and also the things that it makes every turn gains life. So it's pretty easy. And also, it's not just once a round or once on his turn. It is once every turn, so you will always have the mana up, for instance, that you want, or things to flash in, and just overall, it is a very good card. I'm mad it doesn't get more respect, because this is take an extra turn for 10 life.
Yeah, Mia is not calling out the skill of anyone who plays against this. She's more like lamenting that every time I seem to play Beledros, it just never dies. Even if I don't have protection for it, it just kind of just sits there. I have to play a naked Beledros on turn 6 or something, and then I go, all right, pass, and then it just somehow always gets back to me with it. And she's like, "You could take an extra turn. I think you just need to work on your pitch." Because maybe it's just not convincing.
What is bad
he can
about
take an extra turn for 10 life, and everyone else is just like,
yeah, okay, and you're at like 50 or something. That is a big jump. We were just on extra turns, and you used Belladros in there, and you just took an extra turn for 10 life on there, and it was just like, that is so much value.
It's I love it. I have a card that annoys me that Mia plays coming up, so I will take my extra points with Belladros, and you can take your extra points with this other person.
Yeah, it's a good card. It's a good deck. It's a really good deck. I don't like the fact that people don't respect that pay 10 life, untap all your lands is effectively just double the value of a turn.
Don't kill it. If you play against us in Amsterdam or anything, don't you destroy my Belladros. It'll probably be fine. My next card is Supreme Verdict, actually an interesting one. It's 4 mana and it can't be countered, and it says destroy all creatures at sorcery speed. I'm just more confused by this. I always see this card at the top of EDH Rec, but I've never once considered playing it at all. And I guess I feel like people are dazzled by the like can't be countered side of it, but like I'd so much rather just pay less mana for the same spell, like with Vanquish the Horde, or just take a better spell for more mana, like Tragic Arrogance or Farewell. And I don't ever see what home Supreme Verdict could ever have. I think it's like Day of Judgment 99% of the time. And also you're in blue-white, so you have access to counter spells. So if somebody tries to counter your board wipe, in a lot of cases you can counter them back. I never got this one. I think I don't hate it as much as I'm just baffled by it. I don't know where I would do with this. I don't know what anyone's doing with Supreme Verdict.
I mean, I have this exact argument, but it's with Void Rend. I think people are dazzled with this can't be countered. Oh, what happens if it has Ward? I'd rather still be playing the Swords and Path and paying the 2 extra mana for Ward every so often than playing a 3 mana, 3 pip thing that can't be countered because it says it can't be countered. And I think people are just the same way with Supreme Verdict. It's just even harder to keep up than other cards too because it has so many pips.
I think it's just a feeling of safety. I think it makes people feel safe. And whether or not that's actually true is sort of irrelevant. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I don't have an example.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not even on an asymmetrical board wipe. Maybe I'd pay a little more if it was like, just a overloaded Psych Rift, but it can't be countered. That would be so
That's huge. That's insane. Yeah,
but this is a symmetrical sorcery speed board wipe.
It's just Day of Judgment, but it's harder to cast. So, I'm a little confused by it. Supreme Verdict, you baffle me. I definitely don't have it in 15% of my like blue-white decks. Definitely not. What about yours?
Not. Mine is Fiery Emancipation. These are damage doublers that cost a lot of mana.
This one's a tripler, yeah.
Yes, this is the Just You Wait Till I Untap. There is like City on Fire, which has Convoke, which I think is a little bit more playable, especially since Red can make a lot of little guys that, can tap into it. But this is Red's version of like a Timmy Just You Wait Till I Untap. I feel like every time I've seen this, it's always tap out, play this thing, and it just goes, please don't kill me, please don't kill me, please don't kill it, please don't kill it. And at that point, it's like, what's your follow-up? I feel like with these, you either need protection from it or you need a really good follow-up. And with the mana investment of these, I think it's just really hard to play in decks that just are well-paced or like moderately paced decks. And I feel like that's where I see them a lot. And I just don't think they have a home. In lower-powered decks or a little bit more janky decks, I think they have more of a home because you have more time to spare to actually build up to that 6 mana.
So what would you say to the people who say, well, I'm going to get a board state first and then play Fiery Emancipation?
Okay, after that, like, are you going to swing out with it? Are you trying to...
Presumably, I think.
Yeah. I still think that's a little bit risky, but I think it's a little bit better than just the people who play it out with a couple creatures and then the Fiery Emancipation. You go, okay, guys, how about we see what happens? Like, I have a Purpose deck, and I wouldn't put Fiery Emancipation in there because I would rather deal damage faster and have cards to chain together to deal damage with Purpose more often than to put something down and double my damage whenever I get around to dealing it.
I think that's a good example. So my next card is almost not even a card. It's kind of like more of a feeling. I just hate when my decks aren't organized in the best way possible. And I think that's where Moxfield.com comes in, because we don't hate Moxfield. We're sponsored by them. We love them. We use them even outside of areas where we're sponsored, like this video. We think they're the best way to build decks online. And I think if you hate disorganized piles of nonsense, Moxfield's going to sort that out real quick.
Moxfield can do so much stuff, including putting tags on it. So if you are playing a certain card and you say, ooh, the Nitpicking Nerds don't like that card, you can tag it and says NN hates this, and just keep a running collection of all the cards that we hate in your deck.
My hated commander that Mia has, and I am only referring to one copy of this. I only hate one copy of Yarok the Desecrator, and it's whatever copy Mia has in the command zone. She has this budget deck, which is full of like Yarok and a bunch of blink stuff, and it's totally fair deck. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it, but it has so many board wipes in it, and it's just like the slowest deck I've ever seen in my entire life. And I kind of try to tell people at the beginning of the game to no avail that, like, we have to kill Mia. She's going to play Noxious Gearhulk twice on turn 7, and we're all going to groan because now she's at 56 life and nobody has any creatures. And it's like, that's the inevitable thing if you don't tech Mia, if you don't bully her a little bit in the start or keep Yarok off the field. And it just never works that way. I understand to my opponents, that's not, I wouldn't trust me either, right? I would assume I'm just blowing smoke.
He's so tall.
It's true, and just the deck is so slow, and it cannot win in more than like, it needs 3 whole turns to win, like bare minimum, even after it's dominated the board. So I think I hate it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I hate it a little bit.
It's definitely a slower deck. It is a lot of that Sultai value poop, as we would call it. If
we call it Sultai poop, yeah.
If this was limited, but it's just a lot of Sultai value overall. And there's a lot of blink and stuff. It's dungeons, so it's not exactly the fastest deck. And I'm trying to rush towards like Duskmangler or Gary or something.
That's like the other thing, is it's dungeons. Insofar as you're just going to tutor up the same 2 cards anyway. Like Grey Merchant of Asphodel has nothing to do with dungeons, I will add. But it's a dungeon deck, but you're going to trigger the last mode of the dungeon to get Grey Merchant and trigger that
Sorry,
twice.
What would you like me to tutor up in the dungeon? Tell me a dungeon creature where you're like, yes, that is a great
No,
finisher.
you're just supposed to go through the room that deals 5. That's how you win.
I do go through the room that deals 5, and I also get Gary.
I think fans of the show will know that I also really don't like Gary, so probably makes sense why I'm not.
But you love Duskmangler.
I do love Duskmangler. That's a cool one. I can't hate on that guy, but I will hate on Gary.
I have been more often getting Duskmangler than Gary.
Disagree. I will disagree with that statement.
That's all you remember.
Yarok, 3 thumbs down, and let's go to...
Yarok is resilient.
Let's go to your next card.
Teferi, the Master of Time, is my next card. It's a 4-mana planeswalker, but you can activate it on everybody's turn, and you can phase out a creature, draw and discard, or the last mode.
Time stretch.
Which, yeah, I was like, which we usually don't get to, so I completely forgot about it. This thing... I feel like you shouldn't be able to activate a Planeswalker on everybody's turn. I feel like that's one of the limitations of Planeswalkers, and that's the risk you take when you play it. I feel like this shouldn't come down on turn 3 or 4, and I feel like it shouldn't protect itself at instant speed.
I love this card.
It's a great card.
So much.
Get it out of here.
I play it in 1 or 2 decks, at least one, and Mia sees it all the time. I just happen to draw it a lot. It's very annoying. I am like, yeah, guys, sorry, hold on. Before your turn's over, I have to activate Teferi. He's extremely frustrating. I played him on the board where he was defenseless, and there was like 6 power of creatures, and it just didn't matter because he was just going to keep plussing so much that he would survive, and then once he survived, I could protect him. And then it's like he creeps up to that time stretch. It's very real. If he ultimates, the game is over. But either way, he's just fiddling around. You're getting draw discards, and like it's so annoying. I feel annoying, like palpably annoying when I play this card.
Well,
so
you are.
I can only imagine what everybody else is going
because every time it's like, I'm going to actually I'm going to phase out your creature.
Oh, that's attacking Teferi for too much. I'm gonna phase it out. Or like, oh, you're trying to combo, I'm gonna phase it out actually.
Yeah, oh, beginning of your turn, I'm going to actually draw and discard.
Oh, you're casting a spell? I need to find an answer. Let me plus draw discard.
It's just obnoxious. This comes down so early. If this was a little bit more mana, maybe I'd give it a pass, but it comes down on turn 3 or 4. It's very powerful, and it activates on everybody's turn, which means it's very hard to kill. And it's not like Planeswalkers are enough of a problem in EDH where you're playing something that's like destroy target Planeswalker or whatever for the most part, because those are usually not that great of spells. Oh,
don't forget the bonus. I think people don't attack Planeswalkers enough in Commander, which I think is also why other people play Planeswalkers more than us, because when I see it, I'm like, let's just kill the thing. When people forget to attack Teferi, it's actually so backbreaking for the table that it could be game over in some situations. Like, oh, you could have attacked for 3, and they're like, whatever. It's like, no, you really needed to attack Teferi for 3.
People don't respect Teferi enough, and he's too powerful, because activate anytime at an instant and then once each turn, that is just too powerful. If it was once a cycle and you can activate at an instant, I would be a lot lower on this card, and so would Beezy.
Once again, if you play against me and I play Teferi, it's fine. Don't
Just
worry about
attack it.
Don't worry about it. You can leave up a blocker. You probably should. Okay, my next card, Bootlegger Stash. I don't hate. Okay, what I hate about this card was the general public's reaction to it, because from the get-go, I looked at this thing and I'm like, whatever. I don't know. I don't. This just looks like a mythic rare to me. It looks like it'll go in treasure decks, treasure doublers, maybe where you're untapping lands or something like that. Because on its face, this card does nothing. It makes your lands.
Just you wait.
Your lands can now store mana instead of tapping for mana, which is really close to the same thing, and you don't want to pay 6 mana on it. But when this thing was spoiled, maybe this is just. Maybe it's bootlegger stash parentheses twitter.com, because everybody on Twitter was just like, this card is broken. The game is ruined. This card will be banned in 16 minutes. Once the rules committee sees it, it will be banned, and Wizards will never be able to print any card with the word treasure on it again. Green didn't need this. Treasure decks didn't need this. What's going on? And I just was like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at a different card, but I thought this card was like Bootlegger's Trash, not Bootlegger's Stash. And look, honestly, I feel like I was right, but anyway, I will forever hate this card just because I felt like I had nobody to turn to when I was like, is this card bad? It feels kind of bad.
It's also not great because it's like $5 still, I think. I still don't even think it would qualify as a budget bomb, even if it was good. I still think it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, it was like 30 or something to start, and I think the price has hopefully reflected that people come down on a little bit. And I'm not even faulting anybody for like reacting strongly to a card that I thought was strong, but I was just like, it just annoyed me. Bootlegger Stash, you just annoy me, and I can never think you're cool now.
I mean, every set, there's one card where like, this is going to break Commander. Is Commander ever going to be the same after this card?
Yes.
And I was laughing because they didn't call out like Ledger Shredder, but they called out Bootlegger Stash. And those came from the same time.
Ledger Shredder was pretty slept on by almost everybody.
It was like $1 at one point, and then it shot up to like 20 once it was really good in like standard or something.
Do you think Ledger Shredder did like a Freaky Friday body swap with Bootlegger Stash? And that's why the prices were like reflected the whole time?
I mean, maybe because 6 mana for a green artifact to store mana when you can just make mana in green. I don't know.
Again, good in treasure decks, but that's like 1% of the decks people were playing.
Yeah, especially green treasure decks. That's not that many.
Yeah, all right. Your next card is a card that I play almost just to annoy you, so I can't blame you for hating it.
I hate the day-night cycle. I don't think day-night is often good enough to even bring into a game. There's one card that I will put as the exception for that, and that's Vadrik. I think Vadrik's a very good card. It's the only card with day-night that I will deal playing with because it is that good. However, I hate the Celestis. It's a 3-mana mana rock. It'll tap for a mana, and if it goes from day to night or night to day, I think you draw a card and you gain a life. Is that correct?
Draw a discard. It's worse than that.
Okay, it's not even that good. It brings day and night into the game. Why do I hate day and night? Because you have to track it for the rest of the game. If the Celestis gets blown up in Farewell or Austere Command, you're still going to have to track day and night, technically. Even if this thing can never come back and you go, guys, well, there's never going to be day and night again because none of our decks have it, you still technically have to track it, and I hate that.
I think it's pretty funny. I think day night's pretty low effort to track, but I do have a deck that kind of just cares about this annoying type of thing, so I have the Celestis in it, and it brings me joy. This is probably the stuff we can do as a couple where I just enjoy tilting you off the face of the planet.
I'm going to put Gary in more decks.
No.
This is what it's coming to.
But like Gary does something, Celestis doesn't do anything.
That's making your argument worse. Babe, this isn't even good in my deck. I'm just doing it to annoy you versus this is a win con, you know? It annoys you, but I can put in, this isn't even a good mana rock. I'm just annoying you right now.
Hold on. It's now nighttime. I'm going to draw this card.
Yeah, it's awful. I hate day-night because it's like, oh, okay, so I have to keep track of everyone else's board, my cards, everyone's graveyard, and then you're also asking me to track day and night because of your 3-mana mana rock, the type of mana rock you don't advocate for playing to begin with.
Okay, my next card, it's a fun one. I think I need to preface this a little bit because when I talk about how people reacted to this, I'm actually not even really talking about you, viewer, because this was on a YouTube short, multiple YouTube shorts. And I was talking about like, hey, here's some cards that I think you're better off not running. And one of them was Vampire Nighthawk. You would not believe the amount of vitriol and like hatred and like genuine anger and frustration that I caused once this YouTube short like reached past our audience, which is you guys, who I think most of them would say like, yeah, I'm not really playing Vampire Nighthawk in anything. I think if someone showed me a deck with Vampire Nighthawk, I would say they could cut it. No, whoever saw this short was like,
how dare you insult my son?
Like, this guy is farming clicks. He must be a liar. And like, I understand.
I bet he doesn't even play Magic.
I bet he doesn't even play Magic. And I'm not saying that you can't say those things, but for Vampire Nighthawk, it made me laugh so hard. And it just like, I hate this card now, but like in a fun way where whenever I see it, I just have to like chuckle to myself because there's just some alternate reality where if you suggest cutting this card, someone's going to slap you across the face.
I feel like it's one of the cards where you have like, it's in some pre-cons and maybe you're like, that's my baby. But I would never be like, hey, I think you should cut this card. Do you even play Magic, dude? I mean, 3 mana for a Death Touch flying lifelink.
All right, I can't trust your opinions anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
once in a while, YouTube Shorts, they come up with they strike gold, and I'm gonna remember this forever. It was very, very good. What is your next card?
My next card is Sterling Grove. It's an enchantment in Selesnya, and it says other enchantments have Shroud, and you can sack it and pay 1 to go tutor up your favorite enchantment and put it on the top. I don't like Enchantress decks. I think they're very uninspired. I think it's like a play 3 enchantments. Oh, I draw from every single enchantment. Draw, play enchantment, draw, play an enchantment. And it's
Hold on, sometimes you play an enchantment that draws. I play an Enchantress deck, so I have to listen to it.
Yeah, I was like, I think it's a little boring. Well, I don't hate your Enchantress deck because I think it's kind of funny that you have Takesia out, which doesn't care about enchantments. And I also think it's funny that you put Imperial Archangel on there. And enchantments also target, so you have to get around some like weird way to actually get those on.
That deck is like 5 cards away from you hating its guts.
Oh, absolutely. If you put Sithis in and swap out a few enchantments, I hate it immediately. And personally, I think it's what makes it hard for me to build a Selesnya deck because a lot of the Selesnya cards are just either tokens, which I play a lot of already, so I don't really want to delve into a third token deck, or enchantments, and I don't like that.
So if you see Enchantress like stuff, you're gonna kill it. Like, you're gonna take it out because
yeah,
you're like, I hate this.
Sterling
I can't.
Grove, because that is just, I feel like this is the epitome of like enchantments. It's like it's a tutor for your enchantments. It comes down really, really cheap. It tutors for really cheap. It also protects the rest of your deck, where it's just draw, play. Okay, I win now. So
I will say some Enchantress decks have a really hard time winning. I play more of an auras based, and I think that's like 50-50. There's like auras based where they're going to play like ethereal armor and kill you with that. That's probably more of a clear game plan, but there's some versions of Enchantress that are playing like Sigil of the Empty Throne, and like that's not really enough of a win con to justify all the dirtling and the wheel spinning, because it requires like a whole turn of playing like 4 or 5 enchantments in a row. Then you get 5 4/4s, which isn't enough to take out one player. So you have to untap with it a bunch of times. And like that kind of stuff can lead to, I top decked a board wipe. Now the game goes on for 20 more minutes while you find some other token maker. And it's just like those decks can be pretty rough to play against sometimes.
It's just so long and drawn out. And I think I'm a little bit softer on certain Enchantress decks. I really like Onyxia. I think that is a very cool deck.
Yeah, I think also like some of the decks have a lot of cards that are similar. So like if there's probably
Enchantress's presence. I haven't Jukai Naturalist.
10 enchantments in it that go in every Enchantress deck, and you're gonna see them, and they all pretty much have the same text box. Yeah. So I can understand where you're like, every time you see one of these 10 cards, it's like seeing all of them.
Yeah, and Sterling Grove is the epitome of that. I don't know. It's just like the find your favorite enchantment. Also, you can't touch any enchantments. Also, it'll come down on turn 2, I promise.
Yeah, again, love ranting about cards that, annoy us for various reasons. Most of them have nothing to do with how good or bad the card is. We want to know what your most hated cards are. Let us know. And if you want to see this Nitpicking Nerds video, I think it goes very well with cards we hate. It's a nice follow-up, maybe a palate cleanser.